Getting ready for the 2019 turkey season, Part 2, William Hovey Smith. I am the author of Extreme Muzzleloading and other books on muzzleloading guns, and also a series of business books like Create Your Own Job Security, which I'll have more to say about at the end of the video. Also, at the end of the video will be contact information about some of the makers of the products that I discuss. This is Hovey Smith, the Backyard Sportsman, and this is Getting Ready for Turkey Season Part 2. And my knife shop here seems to be an unlikely place to have anything to say about turkey hunting, but quite to the contrary. If you have been turkey hunting for as many years as I have, you'll have a lot of old gear. And the thing about old gear, you have to fix it from time to time. So, we have boots here, and the soles were coming off. So we went ahead and we used our favorite adhesive, shoe goo, and we have repaired it. Also, we had a problem with Helga. Here. It seems that sometime last year she lost a leg. So I have made her a new one. This is out of ash tool handle material, and I've sharpened it as you see and also bored it out. So when I put it in the ground and you have a stiff breeze blowing, Helga will rotate. And that's what I use this decoy for. On very, very windy days, when the flex foam decoys just won't do it all. They blow around like tops or collapse altogether. Now, one problem with the original stake that was provided, it was out of a softer wood, and we have hard clay here. So sometimes it's very difficult to get in the ground. So not only is this a harder wood, I'm going to do something to it. I'm going to fire harden it. This is an ancient technique and was used by a very, very early man indeed to put a sharp, more durable point on things like a spear. So we're going to start up our flame here. Alrighty. What this does, this heat burning drives the moisture out of the wood on the very surface and makes it harder than it would be ordinarily. So when this cools off a little bit, I'm going to give it a coat of black spar varnish here, which would make this very durable indeed. Not very pretty, but effective. Okay, and that can proceed to dry very nicely, and we'll have now Helga got her leg back. This phase of part 2 of getting ready for Georgia's turkey season is going to be concerned with getting some of my larger decoys out, relocating a stand, as well as fixing it up again. It needs a new skirt, so I'm going to install that. And I'm going out with my lawn tractor, as you see. This is a Tree Lounger ground lounge stand. And this is a new company that's also making the traditional tree lounge stands. And these are being made using the original factory jigs, that is the Tree Lounge. This was a design that is new from Tree Lounger itself. And I've had it up on this tree for, a year. And I'm going to move it down closer to the pond because that's where the turkeys spend most of their time. They come up where we are now late in the day. And so if I'm going to hunt early, yeah, I need to hunt down there closer to water and closer to their roost trees. My first delivery is here. And this is my food plot. And we've got grain coming up now. There are both wheat and oats as well as some clover out here. And I'm also going to plant some squash seed. And what we do here is my heavy decoys like Helga get used in this plot. And I stash them up there in the stand. For a food plot grain, this is looking pretty good. There's some mixed clover in here, as you can see. The material that's coming up has a nice bright green color to it. I might come out here and put a bag of fertilizer on this field just to perk it up a little bit. But generally it's looking reasonable. Our soils are so leached here that if you don't fertilize, your grain comes up looking almost like dried straw. I mean, it turns absolutely yellow. On the edge of the food plot here, I'm planting some squash seed. I'm using a little welder's tool there to dig. And this is some acorn squash, as a matter of fact. So it'll grow and come out during the summer months, and if we have a decent amount of rain, it'll actually give me something to eat. Well, here's the sled in travel mode with the stand on it. This ridge crest has always been a good spot for turkeys. For some reason or other, turkeys like ridge crest and will oftentimes use them. Although I don't see any real fresh sign here today, I'm going to go ahead and set up. There's a blowdown near where I'm going to put the stand, and that'll give me a little added cover. But this looks pretty good today. It's so dry, it's hard to tell if turkey sign is really fresh or not. But right now, I'm just not seeing much. I have my ground lounge up and draped now. And whilst I was doing that, the hen turkey came up about 70 yards away and cackled and spoke to me. And what it asked was, "What are you doing in my woods?" To translate freely from the turkey. The final part of the preparation process is actually putting your gear out in the field and see if you can get it all there and all functioning. Well, Helga here is looking good. I have my turkey vest behind me, and it has some good stuff in it. However, one of my decoys is not complete. Oh. Poor fellow here is missing something important, like tail feathers. We'll have to find those. But right now, we're going to get up in our blind and see if we can find us a turkey here. Now, looking out through the blind windows, you can see how the food plot looks. And that's my shooting range down there. And the last thing down is 275 yards. So the general plot is to sit here until dark and see what shows up. And as you saw in a previous phase, we actually deployed out in the woods last night on my food plot. And I had some decoys, including this one. And what I found was I did not have all of it. Guy here is missing something vital. In short, a tail. Woof, 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 woof. Well, I had one and I'd used it for 3 years or so. And this was a silk fan that spread out like this that had thin plastic ribs. And these ribs embrittled when they were exposed to sunlight and ultimately fractured, and the whole thing sort of fell apart, and I patched it up and spliced it, and etc., 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 and finally gave up the ghost. Now this decoy, which is the Bee Mobile Decoy, here also has an option where you can attach real turkey feathers and make a real turkey feather fan. And it has a neat little holder here that folds up so that your feathers actually take up much less space than trying to carry a full blown up fan out of the woods with you. God knows the stuff we carry is bulky enough, particularly when you consider decoys like this. So, I have to kill a turkey first before I can put one of those together, because I don't happen to have a whole turkey fan ready. Plus, when you make one of those fans, you want to pluck those feathers while the turkey is still warm with body heat. That way you can pluck them easily. If you try to take them out of a fan that's years old, it gets very difficult. You have to cut them out, really. And so if you can pluck them fresh, you can get the full quills and they'll fit in the little slots very nicely, and you can make up a fan. So if you're considering doing that, yeah, do it on a freshly killed turkey. But that not being an immediate option, I ordered another fan from a different maker, from Flambeau. And this total is $29, but it is a silk printed fan, and I'll be able to attach it to the back here. I may have to take a scroll saw and make a sort of hemispherical attachment to it, but that's no big deal. So I can do that and paint it sort of brownish black and maybe paste some feathers over it or whatever I have to do to make it work. But that silk fan also folds, but doesn't have the brittle plastic ribs, so that's good. Now, we had also lost last year one of our foam flexible decoys, and I have not recovered it. Consequently, I have these blow-up plastic decoys. Well, the bad thing about these is they are so shiny that I don't like to use them except in very dark, overcast days. Then they work okay. But I had another problem with this, in that the stakes that came with them run inside and left the whole decoy very close to the ground without very much room to set the stakes. So any wind would, blow them over right quickly. So what I've done is cut some dowel here and rounded the top. So you put this dowel in, then you put your stake in, and now I can implant it this deep and still have the turkey decoy up at about its natural position. And it's still flexible and can turn in the wind like I want it to. So that's another modification we made. Yet another thing I do in preparation for turkey season is I look at videos. Look. Yeah. These happen to be the Realtree All-Stars of Spring videos. And they're pretty good, and I enjoy looking at them every year. And I particularly enjoyed seeing the young guys then when I started watching them. Notably, Bill Jordan's son Tyler and David Blanton's son Harmon so to grow up and get in the turkey hunting business. Well, right now, Tyler has grown from about 3 years old when he first appeared on these to young adulthood. So he's a good-looking guy, as is Harmon for that matter. And you can still watch him online. Now, Realtree has stopped putting these out in retail stores, or at least I haven't been able to find any of them for years. And these were always very expensive things to produce. And when you added the cost of making the video and stocking them and shipping them, etc., 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 I suppose they found that not worth the trouble. Although it was an advertising media for Realtree and worked very well in that regard. Now, all of these are available from the Realtree store. So you go to www.realtree.com and you can buy them, even the oldest of them, and download them directly to your computer. So you don't have to go to a store to purchase them, and they don't have to ship them and worry about stocking them and all these added costs. So these are available, any of them I think now for $9.99 for downloading on your computer. And then you put them up in the cloud and you have them, you can drag them back, watch them anytime you want. So we have gone digital rather than analog in the sense of handling these videos. So how did we turn out yesterday when we actually went out in the woods for our trial and we moved our stand, which you've already seen? Well, I had a turkey talk to me while I was actually putting up the stand, so that was interesting. When we went back and sat on the food plot in the evening, we stayed until very nearly full dark, and I heard no turkeys fly up. But I'm well away from water, I'm well up in the center of my property, so they just weren't roosting there. They'll come up when we have wet weather and rain, but not last night. I did see 3 deer and a gray fox. He was mousing around, literally so whoop, whoop, whoop. Oh, interesting to watch. But no coyotes and no hogs appeared last night. So we're ready and we're tested and we've ordered the stuff we needed. We've watched our videos and we're all ready and raring to go. Go out there and kill some turkeys. The next day I did my shakedown hunt and occupied the Ground Lounger strap-on stand that I'd moved the day before. It's 4 o'clock and we haven't seen any activity here. So I'm going to move down to the extreme end of my property, so I would have hunted it from one end to the other now by the time I'm done. But I want to tell you a little bit about the lock that's on this gun. Although this is a Lyman Deerstalker, the lock is not. This is an L&R lock, which is a replacement lock available for both the Lyman and Thompson Center. Now I own a Thompson Center flintlock, and initially I had problems with it. It has a coil spring, and the Lyman lock looks remarkably similar. It's not identical, but quite similar in operation and function, also with a coil spring. Well, the coil spring works very well with percussion guns, but not so well with flint. This lock has a traditional leaf spring and gives a faster ignition and a surer ignition. It's also a precision-built lock. Now, even though I've carried this gun around and had it in all kinds of positions, vertical, horizontal, upside down, and so on and so on and so on, we're going to check the priming pan right now. It should have prime in it yet. Voila. And yes, it does. That's a pan full. Most enthusiasts would tell you that, well, that's actually a little too much powder in the priming pan, that about half that much would be sufficient, which is correct. So that's what a good lock will do for you. So if you want a good lock for your Lyman or your Thompson Center, yeah, give Mr. Cox a call. He's in Sumter, South Carolina, and you can find him just L&R Lock. He advertises in Muzzle Blast. Dixie Gun Works carries his locks and many other sources. And they will require a little modification and a little inletting, but they're well worth doing. This pile of stuff we have on the table is what a well-dressed turkey hunter takes in the woods with him. This is, of course, the turkey vest. And you see one turkey decoy in it. There's actually a second decoy in there, as well as a turkey fan, which you saw deployed. This also has spaces in the pockets for various calls. I take a slate call, I take 2 box calls, I have a set of fighting purr calls in here right now, and we have a wing bone call as well, right here. Okay, so all this, some food, gloves, head net, usually goes in the turkey vest. All right. Now, you can hunt only so long as your butt can stand it. My cushion. Since this is the first time out on some of my trails that I've actually walked them rather than ridden them, I had my clippers on my belt, so any little offending branches and wires and such I could clip out of the way. This, of course, is my priming horn for my flintlock, and my shooting bag, which contains all my shooting accessories, plus sometimes 1 bottle of water, oftentimes a couple of pieces of fruit, oftentimes a couple of packages of crackers. Because I've been out for 8 hours today. And we actually hunted 3 areas, all on my property, but 3 distinct parts of it, and saw absolutely nothing. What may be happening on the section of property I hunted, that my neighbor has a feeder still going on his food plot. He's feeding deer, which is legal, but you may not hunt turkeys over feed. That is, so I can't shoot a turkey out of his food plot, nor would I, or even within 100 yards of it. But his feeders are keeping the turkeys down on that end of the property near the pond, where I may not hunt, and out of my property, where they would usually roam back and forth looking for food. So since they've got food right there, they don't wander as much. So that's restricting my turkey hunting. Consequently, I'm going to have to move up on another less accessible part of my property and concentrate on getting turkeys on that end of it. Because this end, I just don't see any sign that they've been working it recently. We'll check again after we've had some rain and see what happens. Now, interestingly, coming back, a feather in my yard. Now, this looks very suspiciously like a turkey feather. And I have luxurious clover growing in my yard, so while I was out for 8 hours, there were turkeys in here feeding on my clover in my backyard. What? Now that sort of adds insult to injury. But that's turkey hunting. But now, this is Hovey Smith, reminding you to hunt what you eat and eat what you hunt. Be legal, be ethical, be safe, goodbye, God bless, and see you next time. I have chapters on turkey hunting and also recipes for cooking turkeys and other wild game in my outdoor books. And these include extreme muzzleloading, backyard deer hunting, and I discuss taking turkeys with crossbows and crossbow hunting. I also have a series of e-books on muzzleloading that are inexpensively available from Amazon.com and other sources. And these also have sections and discussions of turkey hunting. My new business book, Create Your Own Job Security, is about individual entrepreneurship. I encourage kids as early as high school to actually start their own businesses. Then in college, take some business courses along with your major. And then when you go to work for the man, you actually start your own business and run it quietly in the background. That way, if you're in your 40s and older and suddenly you get laid off from what you thought was your lifetime job, you have something to fall back on that's already developed and making a little income. Now, do your first shakedown hunts close to home so that if you should leave or lose something, you can quickly recover your gear. Now, turkey regulations change from state to state, so check things out to see if you're legal. You can find out about Ground Lounger stands at www.groundlounger.com. And you can purchase the Realtree videos at www.realtree.com and find out about L&R locks at www.lr-rpl.com. And they also have a complete catalog for $5, by the way. For more information on my books, blogs, and more than 475 videos, go to www.hoviesmith.com. And for more information on my business book, createyourownjobsecurity.com. Good hunting and good eating from the outdoors. Goodbye, and God bless.